In our video today, we're going to be looking at author's purpose and rhetorical choices in preparation for reading a text about standing up to injustice. So our objective for this lesson is to analyze a persuasive speech and identify the author's purpose, analyze and evaluate text structure, and evaluate rhetorical devices or rhetorical choices and their effectiveness. First thing we're going to talk about is author's purpose. An author's purpose is the specific reason or reasons for the writing. So sometimes an author has one specific purpose, or they will have multiple purposes or reasons for writing the text. Author's purpose is also what the author hopes to accomplish. So their intended outcome in writing their text. And this PIE acronym is something that I used when I taught junior high, middle school, and it might be something that you're familiar with. These are like the basic author's purposes are persuade, inform, entertain, which spell the acronym PIE. But there are many different purposes, and these are some additional examples. These are not the only types of purposes that authors can have, but they could also want to explain something or defend their position, make a critique, which is criticizing or saying that something that someone else has done or said is wrong. Analyzing, so that is a purpose for your writing often. And instruct, which is something that I do often, is to instruct or teach. Next, let's talk about audience. So these are the intended receivers or listeners of a text. And writers make specific choices based on their intended audience to make their argument more persuasive. So think about when you are talking to like your parents and you're trying to convince them to get you a new phone or let you go to a party this weekend or allow you to do something that you think that they are going to be reluctant about or say no to. Think about the choices that you make when you are addressing that audience versus if you're asking them to do something that you think they'll probably say yes to. You might approach your audience differently and make different choices in order to be more persuasive. Rhetorical choices are anything a writer or speaker does to try to persuade their audience. And we're going to talk about a bunch of different rhetorical choices. But I want to emphasize that this is anything that a writer or speaker does can be considered a rhetorical choice. Rhetorical here, we're talking about effectively communicating or effectively persuading. Typically, students think of rhetorical as in like rhetorical questions. That is a rhetorical choice, is using a rhetorical question, a question that you already know the answer to when you ask it. But those two things are not identical. Rhetoric is using language effectively to persuade. Okay, rhetorical choices. On your notes, you have this graphic. These are some rhetorical choices. These are not all of them, but all of these fit under the umbrella of rhetorical choices. Anything that a writer does in order to persuade. And we have talked in the last lesson, 1.1, about appeals and evidence. Figurative language is something that you've been talking about since elementary school. Word choice is something you've been talking about since elementary school. Text structure is something you've been talking about since elementary school. So on your notes, we are going to skip appeals and evidence and just know that you can refer back to your 1.1 notes if you need additional help with that. Figurative language, we're talking about similes, metaphors, hyperbole, personification. If you do not know what these examples of figurative language mean, then you need to record these notes. So similes are comparing two things by using like or as. Like, he runs as fast as a cheetah, shows how fast he runs. A metaphor is saying that one thing is another thing. So comparing two things by saying that one is another without using like or as. Like, the world is a stage is a metaphor because we're saying the world is a stage. Hyperbole is over-exaggeration. We use hyperbole all the time, right? Like when I say, I've told you 1,000,000 times, that's hyperbole because I have not literally told you 1,000,000 times. I have figuratively told you 1,000,000 times. And then personification is giving human qualities to non-human things. Like the wind whispers. The wind isn't actually whispering. That's something that people do. But the wind is like blowing really slowly, quietly, so it's whispering. The next rhetorical choice we're going to talk about is word choice. And word choice or diction is used to convey tone. And tone is the author's attitude about the subject or their audience or both. Okay? Think about tone of voice, the tone that you use when you are conveying how you feel about something. You have a list on page 1 in your binder that is broken up into different categories. Okay? Let me pull it up. So it's this right here, page 1. And you've got positive tone words, neutral, and negative that you can refer to. And the last rhetorical choice we're going to talk about is text structure. So there are many different types of text structure, like chronological order, going in like time order, problem and solution, presenting a problem, then presenting a solution to that problem. Compare and contrast. These things are similar in this way, these things are different in this way. And then cause and effect. And we're going to be talking specifically about cause and effect today. So cause and effect is, the cause is why something happened. It's the reason for something happening. And the effect is what happened. So in the text that we're going to read today, the author uses cause and effect text structure, which is why we are focusing on that particular text structure. And that is it for this video. You're going to watch another video that's super short, it's like 2 minutes long, about civil disobedience, which might be a brand new term to some of you guys. It might be something that you guys know really well, but this is going to give you really good context for the text that you're going to be reading and analyzing in this lesson.